The following is intended to assist equipment users with installation, startup, and maintenance procedures for an Okada America hydraulic breaker. This real-world training provides helpful, straightforward insights that add value and will improve your efficiency and profitability. Watch this repeatedly until these industrial standards become second nature to your entire crew. Safety and general information. In no way does this training replace the operating manual. Please ensure that you have read and understood the supplied operating manual before undertaking any of the actions demonstrated in this training. Make sure all relevant safety practices and procedures contained in the operating manual are followed by all people working on or with this hydraulic equipment. Please make sure all personal protective equipment complies with the applicable health and safety regulations. For your own personal protection, always wear the following equipment: an appropriate protective helmet, safety glasses, protective shoes and gloves, a warning vest, and hearing protection. It is also important that the operator and all who are assisting agree on clear hand signals before starting operations. Hydraulic attachments should only be mounted on carriers with sufficient load-bearing capacity, and it is important that one always refer to the operating manual for the correct matching between carrier and attachment. Hydraulic breakers are delivered standard with an operating and safety manual and nitrogen gauges. Make sure you have these and use them. A taper gauge enables a quick and easy way to check the wear condition of the lower bushing and tool. The wear tolerances differ based on the size of your hammer. Maximum wear tolerances can be located in your operator's manual supplied with each Okada America hammer. Always replace the tool bushings when their inside diameter has reached the maximum permissible diameter. Failure to do so could result in additional damage to the hydraulic hammer, such as the piston. Fitting the hydraulic breaker. Mounting hydraulic attachments to a carrier can be a dangerous process. Sudden movements of the carrier could easily cause an assistant to be hit or injured by the boom or the attachment. Make sure to move the boom very slowly and in a very controlled way, especially while any assistant is inside the work area's danger zone. Bores and fitting surfaces can act much like a pair of scissors, with the potential to cut off or hurt parts of your body. Never use your fingers to check bores or fitting surfaces. As often as possible, make sure to check the connection threads of the hydraulic attachment and the corresponding hose fittings to ensure they are undamaged and in good working order. That includes cleaning all fittings from sand or any other foreign objects before connecting the hoses. Depressurizing the hydraulic system in accordance with the carrier's safety and operating manual is critical before connecting or disconnecting the hydraulic attachment, or before doing any maintenance work on the hydraulic components of the attachment or the carrier. And after properly mounting the hydraulic attachment to the carrier, make sure that the hydraulic hoses have the correct length. And to confirm the lengths are correct, always take time to carefully extend and retract the bucket cylinder all the way to the respective end positions, so that you can ensure that the hoses are not exposed to torsion or tensile loads. Checking and adjusting nitrogen gas pressure. The gas pressure in the back cap and the accumulator should be checked, and if necessary, adjusted before putting the hydraulic breaker into operation. Refer to the operating manual for the correct gas pressure of the respective breaker model. Loosen the 4 mounting bolts and remove the lower cover plate from the service window. Unscrew the sealing plug from the filling valve. Install the pressure gauge on the service port and then record on the inspection form the nitrogen pressure in the breaker. If the value measured is equal to or less than the minimum gas pressure stated in the operating manual, The accumulator must be filled with nitrogen to the required level. Connect the filling hose to a nitrogen cylinder. After opening the main valve of the nitrogen cylinder, slowly open the pressure relief valve and let the nitrogen flow into the accumulator. Adjust the nitrogen to the manufacturer's specification located in the manual. Recheck and disconnect the charge hose and gauge from the nitrogen accumulator. Install the sealing plug back into the filling valve and tighten it. Procedure for setting pressure and flow. Checking and adjusting pressure and flow is mandatory each time a breaker is installed on a carrier. Improper flow can seriously hinder the performance of the breaker, void the warranty, and/or cause severe damage to the breaker. Also, before checking the pressure and flow, we need to verify the level and condition of the hydraulic oil in the reservoir. Do not proceed until any needed adjustments are made. 1. A flow meter is to be hooked up in place of the attachment. The high pressure line, the cab side, at the front end of the stick will connect to the inlet side of the flow meter. The return line at the opposite front end of the stick will connect to the outlet of the flow meter. 2. Open both ball valves. 3. If your flow meter has a restriction knob, run it out counterclockwise so no restriction is applied. 4. Set the carrier to B or breaker mode, if it has that option, then run carrier until hydraulic oil reaches operating temperature. 5. Run carrier up to full throttle, press foot pedal to start breaker circuit. Have a fellow technician observe max oil flow with no restriction applied. This is your carrier output flow. Also, observe the back pressure with no restriction applied. You should always be under 300 psi of back pressure. Record the flow, pressure, and back pressure on your warranty registration form that is included in the manual. Note, if back pressure is over 300 psi, make sure your return line dumps straight to the hydraulic tank on the machine. If the return dumps straight to the hydraulic tank and back pressure is still too high, look for other restrictions, such as a partially closed ball valve, couplers, a clogged return filter, or undersized plumbing. 6. To set your circuit relief valve, secondary relief valve, run the engine back up to full throttle and activate the breaker. Next, turn the restriction knob on the flow meter in clockwise to increase restriction to the point where the relief valve is fully open and zero flow is observed. Set relief to specification. Note, most relief valves will raise pressure approximately 500 psi with a quarter turn in the clockwise direction and vice versa to lower the pressure. 7. To set and record internal oil flow to PQ characteristic. Back off the restriction knob on the flow meter to 1500 psi and record flow. Do the same at 2000, 2300, 2500, and 2800 psi. Record flow results on the product registration form that came in the manual and submit it to Okada. 8. For final confirmation, it is recommended to check the working pressure, also known as the operating pressure, to verify it is within range. For this final step, disconnect the flow meter and connect the hoses to the breaker, but T in a 5,000 psi pressure gauge into the pressure line at the inlet of the breaker. Ensure the nitrogen charges have been checked, then operate the breaker on a test pad to observe the working pressure. This number should fall within the manufacturer's specifications or flow adjustments need to be made. If the working pressure is above specified limits, slightly lower the oil flow until working pressure comes into range. If working pressure is low, increase the oil flow. Lubrication. Hydraulic breakers can be optionally equipped with automatic lubrication units like the Haymax Autolube breaker mounted system. If you have a breaker mounted Autolube on your Okada hammer, the following steps are for replacing your grease tubes to ensure the auto greaser keeps working properly. If you do not have a breaker mounted auto lubrication system, it is still important to make sure you are using a chisel paste specified by your hammer manufacturer. Many greases, such as high-temperature moly or lithium greases, have a drop temperature of about 500 degrees. Your hammer will exceed this temperature before you know it, and other greases will melt away quickly and will not provide your hammer the proper lubrication needed to ensure maximum hammer life. This breaker-mounted auto-lube system can be attached directly at the breaker box and supplies chisel paste to the wear bushings and the working tool. To install a grease cartridge, first clean around the old grease tube to prevent contamination. Inspect and check mounting seal for new grease tube. Prime the new tube like a tube of toothpaste, pushing in the plunger until about a half an inch of grease protrudes from the end of the new grease tube. Next, screw the new tube of grease into the auto lube. With down pressure applied to the tool with a manual grease gun, pump grease into the auto lube's grease nipple until grease protrudes from either the chisel set pins or the working tool. The delivery rate of grease from the auto lube can be adjusted to better meet the application requirements of your size breaker. During hammer operation, wet grease must always be visible on the working tool. If adjustment is desired, remove the protective cap on the pump, see the manual for details. To increase, turn adjusting screw out and decrease by turning in. This will control the delivery rate of the auto greaser. And be careful to note the number of turns you make as you turn clockwise until it's seated. Do this before you turn counterclockwise to adjust when finding the desired amount. And make sure to not exceed 4 turns counterclockwise to ensure you do not accidentally remove the adjustment screw. For manual lubrication, stand the hydraulic breaker vertical on the working tool and apply down pressure. Connect the manual grease gun to the grease nipple and inject 5 to 10 strokes of chisel paste every 2 hours during operation. Larger breakers will require more grease. A properly greased breaker will always have wet grease visible on the working tool. Everyone wins when hydraulic breakers are maintained and used effectively and safely. When operated as designed and intended, money is saved through longer-lasting components and less downtime spent dealing with costly repairs and replacement parts. Ultimately, safe operations not only allows us to go home to our families day after day, they are economically beneficial. If anyone has questions regarding proper use or maintenance, it is imperative to stop, ask, read, learn, and proceed with caution. We hope that you agree that this training will allow all of us to move forward with confidence and efficiency. Okada America thanks you for your attention.